Family renovating their kitchen uncovers hidden markings beneath the paint. But before we start, please make sure to subscribe to m&rtv and hit the bell so you never miss any upload from us. Also, leave a like right now. Even in something as ordinary as a home renovation, history hides all around us, waiting to be found. The Ramírez family was stripping old paint from their kitchen walls, only to find some strange markings underneath. Further inspection showed that they'd stumbled upon evidence of a lost era. The man who made the historic discovery while fixing up his own home was Lucas Asicona Ramírez. He and his family live in Chajul, a Guatemalan mountain village surrounded by rich history. Within just miles of the humble town lay endless attractions. All around Chajul are ancient ruins, colorful cemeteries, bustling flea markets, and so much more. To make a new discovery in such a historic hub of Central America is an impressive feat. Once Lucas told the world what he'd found, news crews came running. Lucas had torn away at the layers of paint on the centuries-old wall. Yes, centuries. Look inside their 300-year-old home and you'll notice the aged foundation, well-used stove, and recently installed wood and piping. The Ramírez family mistakenly thought their house was typical for their impoverished village. Once Lucas reached the final layer, he knew his home was special. At first he thought he'd found some old damage covered with layers of plaster, but as he explored along the wall, Lucas realized that these markings were intentional. There were colors, lines, shapes, figures. It was an image. Lucas kept chipping until more of the hidden picture was revealed. He saw figures with patterned cloaks, heeled shoes, and strange instruments in their hands. He stopped in fear of causing damage to his amazing discovery. Lucas ran to tell his family about the images, and they gathered around to see. Word quickly spread, prompting the arrival of professional archaeologists to finish off the excavation. It took them weeks to uncover the entirety of the hidden imagery, and it wasn't just the kitchen. Painted through the Ramírez family's home was an epic mural. It depicted the people of an ancient Ixil Mayan civilization that once ruled Mesoamerica. That meant the piece was hundreds of years old. However, as historians examined the figures' clothing, they noticed something strange. While some of the people in the paintings were sporting traditional Mayan garb, there were many dressed in very uncommon clothing, at least uncommon to the region, and yet the clay used to paint the scenes was indigenous to the area. Who could have painted it? As far as execution, all signs pointed to the Mayans. The artwork's lines and distinctive shapes had that traditional Mayan flair, which chemical analysis later confirmed. Whoever created the work was tasked not only with capturing the fashion of the time, but also the dance moves. The paintings depicted men and women shaking around in a blend of dance styles. Some wore feathers and performed traditional moves, while others with long beards banged on drums. Historians quickly realized what they were seeing. The mural depicted the Mayans interacting with the Spaniards who were brutally colonizing the Americas in the early 1500s. The indigenous people were swiftly enslaved, and the original name of the country, Guatemalan, was reinterpreted as Guatemala. So then, why all the dancing? You don't just go into a country, conquer it, and wipe your hands of responsibility. People will fight back if you don't convince them to join your side. With this in mind, Christian missionaries from Spain attempted to convert the indigenous population using a language they'd understand. The Spanish missionaries learned the traditional dances of the region and adapted them as tools for conversion, successfully shifting the local belief system to Christianity. Some of the dances in Lucas's home were long-lost Mayan traditions. Others were just blatant propaganda from Spanish missionaries. There was the Dance of the Conquest depicting the Spanish invasion of the local Mayans. And then there was the Dance of the Moors and the Christians, where Spain was shown conquering Muslim kingdoms. But why would local Mayans paint these propagandist murals in the Ramírez family's home? It wasn't long before the indigenous people fought back against Spain. Despite conversion attempts, the Europeans found the Mayans to be infidels who needed to be put down by force. This terrible insult to the culture and mathematical brilliance of Mayan culture sparked a rebellion. In an interview with Rupley, Lucas explained what his family had been told by researchers. One of his great-grandfathers was a key member of a secret group known as the Cofradías, or Brotherhood. They were responsible for organizing religious meetings with an inspiring message that no one could resist. The Cofradías sought to capture every event in their lives, including the dances and traditions of both Mayan and Spanish culture. With the rebellion well underway, many residents were eager to bring back the influence of their indigenous past. Since Lucas's discovery, similar murals had popped up in other parts of Guatemala. Throughout Chajul and the surrounding area, people began hacking away at their walls in hopes of making similar discoveries as the Ramírez family. Many had enormous success. Ivan Putzis, an archaeologist from the University of Guatemala in San Carlos, explained why these finds were so incredible. "We consider these murals to be very unique," says Ivan. "It's tangible heritage that represents real scenes from history. To work out the entire history, experts needed to communicate with the people who could help them the most, the Ixil. Without the local Ixil people, researchers never would have been able to identify the key components of these murals. As the paintings now fade from light exposure, photographs are all we have left to remember this chapter of Mayan history." Meanwhile, experts are desperate to uncover other evidence from the region. When archaeologist Guillermo de Anda and his crew arrived in the ancient city of Chichen Itza and the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico, their original mission was to better understand the ancient Maya civilization. More specifically, they wanted to access and study what is called a cenote, a sinkhole the ancient tribes believed were portals of access to the underworld. The cenote they sought was allegedly beneath the temple of Cococa. Their plans changed, however, when a local told them about the Cave of the Jaguar God. Besides a totally awesome name, the cave was steeped in a history Guillermo couldn't ignore. See, archaeologist Victor Segovia Pinto had visited the cave in 1966 and, in an apparently unspecific report, noted extensive amounts of archaeological material hidden inside. Instead of excavating it, however, he curiously ordered the cave sealed up. Over the next 50 years, most locals of the former Mayan settlement forgot about Jaguar God. So Guillermo and his crew were delighted by the opportunity to find what Victor had ignored. They knew what caves meant to the Mayans. As Mayan expert Holly Moyes said, because of their believed connection to the underworld, caves and cenotes represent some of the most sacred spaces for the Maya, ones that also influence site planning and social organization. So, refocusing their energies on the potential of Jaguar God, Guillermo and his crew recruited a Mayan priest to conduct a 6-hour purification ritual. This would ensure their safe journey into the potential holy hotspot. Their offering to the cave guardians was modest: honey, a fermented drink called pozole, and even tobacco. But it got the job done. Officially protected in the eyes of Maya, they entered the long-sealed cave. Inside was a claustrophobic's worst nightmare. For well over an hour, Guillermo crawled on his stomach through narrow, twisting tunnels, only a headlamp illuminating the pathway. Guillermo didn't seem to mind. "I've analyzed human remains in Chichen Itza's sacred cenote," he said, "but nothing compares to the sensation I had entering, alone, for the first time in that cave. You almost feel the presence of the Maya." After an hour and a half of painstakingly, slowly crawling, his helmet finally illuminated something curious. "I couldn't speak," Guillermo recalled of the moment he finally understood what he saw. "I started to cry. It wasn't that he'd finally reached a chamber with enough room to stand up that made him cry either. Rather, he'd stumbled upon the archaeological equivalent of a winning lottery ticket. Piles of ancient artifacts lay before him. Grinding stones, decorated plates, and more, all in an excellent state of preservation, despite looking like they were caked in a few billion years' worth of mud. Impressively, thanks to centuries of dripping water, stalactites formed around some of the ancient artifacts and ritual objects. Like this incense burner. All in all, there were about 150 preserved items in the cave. Thinking about Maya in ancient times going there, through those passageways, crawling with the incense burner and a torch, Guillermo said, you see how important these caves were for them. Along with giving Guillermo newfound respect for the Maya, the cave and the items inside, he knew would provide invaluable information on the tribe's rituals and more. Jaguar God can tell us not only the moment of collapse of Chichen Itza, Guillermo surmised, it can also probably tell us the moment of its beginning. Now we have a sealed context, he continued, with a great quantity of information, including usable organic matter, that we can use to understand the development of Chichen Itza. More than that, though, experts believe further study of the area will shed some light on the region's climate and how disastrous droughts possibly led to the Mayas' mysterious first demise. By studying these caves and cenotes, National Geographic archaeologist Frederick Hebert said, it's possible to learn some lessons for how to best use the environment today in terms of sustainability for the future. For this reason, Guillermo believes his work in archaeology is truly saving the world. By studying Maya, he said, we can understand the footprints of humankind's past and what was happening on Earth during one of the most dramatic moments in history. But Guillermo's profession was noble for reasons beyond that which he listed. Thousands of miles from Jaguar God, for instance, archaeologists use science to answer a 14,000-year-old question about some of our earliest ancestors. Specifically, the Heiltsuk people, the First Nation indigenous to British Columbia's Great Bear Forest, have laid claim to the remote Tricket Island for nearly 5,000 years, but archaeologists dismiss their claim of ownership at first for one glaring reason. The continental glacier that formed over Canada during the last ice age would have also covered Tricket Island, making it uninhabitable. But even with the facts stacked against the Heiltsuk, a small group of researchers took it upon themselves to uncover the truth once and for all. The archaeologists began an extensive excavation of the remote island in the hope of discovering traces of a past civilization. What they found there not only shocked the entire archaeological community, but it also changed history forever. Beneath several layers of earth, they found remnants of an ancient wood-burning hearth. But how could this be? According to researchers, it would have been impossible for humans to dig their way through the glacial ice to get to the soil below. As they continued digging, researchers unearthed additional artifacts, including tools and weapons. This discovery stumped the team, as the Heiltsuk people traditionally didn't use tools of this kind. The Heiltsuk people had derived their food source from fishing and smoking salmon, utilizing small, precise tools to harvest the fish. The tools and weapons found were much larger and likely would have been used to hunt large sea mammals such as seals, sea lions, and walruses. What's more, the team also uncovered shards of obsidian, a glass-like rock only found in areas of heavy volcanic activity. This discovery also puzzled the archaeologists, as there were no known volcanoes near this part of British Columbia. But how did this rock and these people get here? The historians deduce that whoever left these artifacts must have traversed the land bridge that existed between Siberia and Alaska during the prehistoric times. Yet researchers still needed cold, hard facts.